Purple Daily is daily Vikings entertainment. We just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die.
I will ride with this group.
Seriously, man. Please.
And away we go.
All right, power check. Judd, power check.
Yep. So far, so good.
Check 1, 2.
So far, so good.
Everything's good.
The estate has been with power now since the hour or so when I had to do the show from my phone. My phone, I think, is still hot, by the way, from trying to do it on my phone.
How old or new is that iPhone?
A couple years old.
Okay.
3 years old, perhaps.
Okay.
So it's not new.
It's not
but
like a second
got
generation, but yeah.
It definitely started to burn up a little bit. But that's fine. You know why? Because people needed the 53-man roster projection.
That's right. And if you missed one of the greatest performances in Purple Daily history, under pressure with no lights, no electricity, no computer, no notes, Judd was basically going a cappella on his 53-man roster projection. That was yesterday. If you missed it, go check it out.
I was a pilot that had lost my navigation system, and I had to call into you on the ground to guide me to the runway.
That's right. You landed in the Mississippi. Who was the famous Sully?
Sully. I don't think I can take as much.
Judleyburger. Judlessburger. I've got a big batch of latest Vikings news for you guys today. So much Vikings news. Presented in part by Neos Elite Performance, Judd, and our guy Eric Sugarman.
Yep, and guess what? I have news for you, and this is news about if you are sore, if you are a guy or gal that love to play golf or basketball, and now you can't, but you want to get back on your feet, feeling good again. Neos Elite Performance is the answer, because if that chronic pain is holding you back, Neos has the answers for how to get through this and actually get back to top performance, cutting-edge regenerative medicine and cellular IV therapy that's going to get you going again without invasive procedures. This is white glove service, which means Neos Elite Performance comes to you. No trip to the doctor's office, no downtime, no surgery, just results. And if you reference Purple Daily, you're going to get $500 off a cellular IV therapy treatment. I'll say that again. Reference our show, Purple Daily. Get $500 off a cellular IV therapy treatment to get you back into the game that you love, no matter what that game is. Just check them out, neoselite.com, Neos Elite.com, to be feeling great and be playing again. Anybody got any Vikings news?
Well, I'm glad you asked, Judd, because yes, we'll start here. Big feature in the Star Tribune on third-round wide receiver Tai Felton, who's made a couple appearances in the OTA and minicamp editions of Judd's Camp Notes. So the question here is Tai Felton about to become a breakout candidate here this year or maybe early in his career? And I want to read you a couple little excerpts from this. One from Vikings wide receiver coach Keenan McCardell, and then another one from Felton's coach at Maryland, Mike Loxley. So we'll start with Keenan McCardell, who said, I ran Tai Felton's pro day, basically, the Maryland pro day. It was a really good workout. I told him, hey, man, you got me thinking now. If I get a chance after watching your pro day, doing some work on you, I'm going to fight to draft you. I think he's going to be a good Viking for a long time. Now, if you remember, McCardell had the Stefon Diggs connection back in the day and saw some things in Diggs, right? So he can sort of sense a mid-round wide receiver. And then Felton's coach at Maryland, Mike Loxley, said he's in the same realm as a Stefon Diggs, as a DJ Moore. Both those guys were Maryland guys. And a Calvin Ridley, who was a Bama guy. The one thing I cautioned Keenan McCardell on is Tai is a tremendous talent, but he can get down on himself at times. And that's where I think Keenan is a great situation as a coach for Tai. So what do you make of the optimism pouring out around wide receiver, third-round draft pick Tai Felton?
So from what I saw, he is... I mean, I certainly don't expect a lot as far as the receiver spot goes this season. There are some concerns about drops.
Yeah, he had one of the highest drop percentages.
Yeah,
and
I'm going to tell you right now, Judd's Camp Notes right here with his own peepers saw some of those. So, like, he definitely, I think if I'm not mistaken, the scouting report is contested catches. But yes, he definitely had some drops. I do think, though, that long term, or at least for 2026, that he is definitely an option to replace Naylor. I mean, I think Jalen could have a very nice season. I also think he's going to get paid somewhere else then, right? Like the Vikings aren't going to, if they are considering bringing or signing Jordan Addison to an extension, which is still a wait and see, you sure as hell aren't going to pay WR3, right? So my assessment on Tai Felton is I think this is a little bit of a project. Could I see him with some type of special teams role in 2025? Absolutely. But I also don't think it's an accident that the Vikings folks publicly are trying to build up a guy who might get down on himself as well publicly. So, but he's a third round pick. I mean, he's the poster child for the type of draft pick that needs to start to work here.
Yeah, not be getting cut from
correct
the fringe of the 53 after like 2 years, which
right.
is
like and
often the case. Yeah,
and this is a guy who, like, you take a guy in the third round specifically also to advance up the depth chart because eventually you can't afford the guy that he is going to replace. Like, this is where the Vikings are lacking, right? Because of the draft problems. They don't have those guys that are always naturally slotting upward. Tai Felton is a prime example of, okay, we've got Jefferson signed for a lot. We may or may not keep Addison, but we know he's really good. Naylor's a nice player, but he's the type of guy who, if he walks, it should not be a big deal. There should be almost an immediate replacement, and I think that should be Tai Felton.
The guys that he mentioned here, the Maryland coach, Mike Loxley, so Diggs, DJ Moore, a couple of Maryland guys, and then Calvin Ridley. I think what he's getting at here are like kind of the 6 foot, 185, 190 pound. They all kind of profile fairly similarly, and they're not 6'3", 6'4", huge targets. They're not necessarily 205, 215 pounds. They're a little smaller, a little shiftier route runners, and he kind of fits into that bin. I think if he can hang on to the ball, Tai Felton, and that was a thing. He had a bunch of drops at Maryland last year, but he also had like 95 catches and way over 1,000 yards, a bunch of touchdowns. But if he can hang on to the football, he can help the Vikings with one of their biggest problems from last year, which was yards after the catch. The Vikings were one of the worst yak teams in the NFL last year. And you got J.J. McCarthy talking about yak and rack at the podium. They drafted Tai Felton, so it's clearly a talking point at practice and mini camps here. But the Vikings were tied for 27th in the NFL last year in average yards after the catch. They were like 1.5 yards or 2 yards per catch in yak behind the top teams like the Lions, the Bills, and the Ravens. And Tai Felton ran a sub 440 40-yard dash at his pro day, and he tied for 4th among all NCAA wide receivers in total yards after the catch his last year at Maryland. He had almost 600 yards after the catch. So if you can catch the ball and use that 4.38 40-yard dash speed, he provides a really interesting layer here, but not someone like you said that you're like leaning on. You need him to break out in year one. You can kind of ease him in as like the number 4 wide receiver.
Yeah, and remember with two things with the Diggs comparison. Diggs was inactive his first 3 games of his NFL career. He wasn't even active. They scratched him, right, and then he was able to like burst onto the scene, had like 4 huge games right out the gate. That team was obviously lacking wide receiver, like legitimate targets. I think we had the end of Greg Jennings, was Mike Wallace, the ghost of him on that team. But with Diggs there, the talent was there. There was obviously, he had some off the field things that made him fall to the 5th round. And another guy that needed a lot of pep talks at times that Vikings probably don't want to hear was Laquan Treadwell. Like Laquan Treadwell needed pep talks, and he was running stairs at Mankato for no reason. Like, I think there's a good receiver here in Tai Felton, and whether it's a development one, whether it's one that starts on special teams and just kind of works his way up naturally, I am curious to see where he fits, though, in the pecking order of this offense.
I think an important thing, too, is McCardell, who I'm sure goes to the pro days and stuff. The most important thing is also, can you run routes? Which sounds really, really stupid, but Laquan Treadwell couldn't run a route. Cordell Patterson struggled with that. So I think McCardell gets the benefit of the doubt too if he suggests a guy and knowing what he can and can't do. Because the starting point is if you're an athlete but you can't run a route, then you can play in the National Football League, but you probably have to be a hybrid type of player because you can't be just a pure receiver unless that can be fixed, and in some cases it probably can't. So yeah, but I think that there's a whole really interesting discussion here as well, you guys, that I brought up a little bit before, but it is the fact that if the Vikings have a weakness now, and I think it's starting to improve a little bit, but it is that it's the depth, right? Like it's the depth of, okay, Javon Hargrave is going to be here probably briefly, but do you have the guy behind him now who's going to be a rotational guy in 2025, but in 2027 is going to be a Pro Bowl player?
Yeah, it's kind of like, look at the Eagles, and they've had it's hard to just compare, like, go be like the Eagles and just go have a generational run of 5 drafts where you just nail every first and second round pick. That is probably one of the greatest 5-year, 6-year draft runs in the history of the NFL. So it's a tough bar to hit, but it is the difference when you let's just say like the last 3 drafts. If I were to give you a few players that are kind of on the fringe here, or a couple players, like I'll give you 4 players. Mekhi Blackman, Dallas Turner, let's say Tai Felton as a 3rd-round draft pick. J.J. McCarthy's a given, like he has to hit. Or 2023 draft, let's say Jay Ward, who's kind of fighting for some playing time.
That's a great one.
If I could guarantee you that Jay Ward, Mekhi Blackman, Dallas Turner, and Tai Felton would all become borderline Pro Bowl caliber players over the duration of their rookie scale contracts, it changes the trajectory of the team. And if all 4 of those guys become busts, like you go back and look at the 2022 draft class is probably the better example, because pretty much everyone, the 10 guys you drafted are all just, besides Jalen Naylor basically, are all just disasters. And if you take even a couple of those guys and flip them, right, at Ingram, well, you threw money at a right guard problem, and hey, Will Fries, good signing, 26 years old. I think we all said, yep, do it. But the only reason why you felt the need to spend $16 or $17 million a year on a guard is because you whiffed. So if you can hit on Felton and Turner and a couple of these guys from the last 2 drafts, it does change your trajectory.
And if you go back to on the Fries signing in March, which I agree, on paper looks really good, but if you look at right now, the projection for the Vikings next March on the salary cap is that they're going to be up against it or over it again. Why? Because you had to solve problems that could have been solved. Like if Ingram hits, he's just your starter.
Yep.
And he is now getting towards the end of his rookie contract. The Jay Ward one I love, and here's why. So with Josh Metellus not taking part during the OTAs and minicamp in 7-on-7s, Jay Ward is being used in the Metellus rover role, right? So we all think that Josh is going to get a contract, but let's say Josh comes in and says, you know what, man, I am a linebacker, basically. I want to be paid upper echelon. And you're like, hold on a second here. You're listed as a safety, and we love you, but we have a potential replacement as well. Like Josh Metellus, as much as he's beloved here, should be the type of guy who, if he threatens to walk, you can allow to walk. And Jay Ward
can't
slides
pay
in
everyone.
Yeah. Exactly. So like these are like people thought for years that we just picked on Kirk, but it wasn't just about Kirk. It was about the salary. And so yes, you cannot pay everyone.
I was picking on Kirk personally. I don't care about what's going on.
Jackass for that.
Boob.
That's a very nice man. But anyway, yeah. So like Jay Ward is a great example though of if he develops and Metellus holds your feet to the fire contractually, you can now say, okay, Josh, we love you. You go get that payday elsewhere. We've got a replacement for you.
Yeah. Okay, let's continue through here.
Latest Vikings news.
That's right. So Jeff Okudah update. And you've given us a couple little sprinklings in Judd's camp notes. But Justin Jefferson had an interesting quote about practicing against Okuda. This is from, you might have been in this scrum too. I just saw the quotes from Will Raggets from SI.com.
Yep.
But Jeff Okudah was, for a reminder, the 3rd overall pick in the 2020 draft. I mean, he was one of the best defensive prospects in the draft. And the Lions grabbed him. It did not work out very well. He's bounced around to a few different teams, but he was drafted 2 slots behind Joe Burrow and 19 slots ahead of Justin Jefferson in the 2020 draft. So in terms of talent level, but it's just it hasn't quite worked out in coverage. It's been kind of a disaster throughout his career, but he's super physically talented. So Justin Jefferson said, quote, he's more of an aggressive corner. He has that speed as well, and he has that ability to really play make and just be an annoying cornerback. That's what I like to call those types of corners, annoying cornerbacks, because they know how to be physical. They know how to get you off your route and not be able to have free access. So Jefferson sort of lauding the peskiness of Okuda, he is like physically, he's strong. He's got all the traits. You know, with Thor, we were talking to Thor about him a couple weeks ago. Said, what do you remember from 5 years ago, your draft analysis? And he's like, I am shocked that guy, and most people are, because all of the Mel Kipers and everyone had that dude as one of the best prospects in the draft. So, but there's some positive updates, I feel like, in the first couple months. So what else can Judd's Camp Notes add to the Jefferson comments here about Okuda?
So if the OTAs and minicamp were a lens to where it's going here, I think that this is the thing. Okuda is going to get the first shot, it looks like, at being the third corner on the outside across from Isaiah Rodgers and with Byron Murphy Jr. inside in the nickel. I think this is a Flores project. Like, I think the Vikings see, I think Flores in particular, but I think the Vikings see something in Okuda that they think they can bring out. Now, part of his thing is staying healthy. That's been a big problem. And that's, unfortunately, if you get hurt, you get hurt. But my sense is that Flores and company think that they have seen something that hasn't been brought out from him as a pro. So, and this goes back to as well, are the Vikings going to sign or trade for a cornerback? And I think the answer might be yes. My guess now is if they do, though, it's in training camp, and it's because Okuda busts. Mekhi Blackman right now is definitely second team. Now, could he compete for a starting spot? Absolutely. But I think the Vikings are taking, as we all sort of panic about cornerback, I think the Vikings are taking a very much a wait and see approach. And the Okuda thing is, don't forget, Kevin O'Connell runs quarterback rehabilitation school, but Brian Flores runs a defensive rehab school on the same campus himself.
Is it rehab school, or is it, I'm trying to think of another name for, because what Flores does is he takes pieces that might be flawed and his system like hides those flaws, which I guess is kind of what Kevin O'Connell, I feel like O'Connell irons out your flaws.
Yeah, no,
Flores like hides your flaws.
Yeah, I think with the cornerback, though, you'd have to iron them out to a certain degree, or because you'll get burned. And I'm interested to see, I guess the only thing that surprises me about Okuda, and I have not watched a bunch of him play for Detroit and Houston and I think the Falcons, but I'm really interested by how poor the coverage grades were.
Yeah.
Because it's like you were drafted 3rd overall out of Ohio State, where I'm going to guess that you became the 3rd overall pick because you were really, really good at covering guys. So I'm curious as to why those grades are so bad. Like, it's surprising. But I think that the Vikings, I think Flores probably sees something that he thinks that he can fix. So
yeah, by the way, by season, his coverage grades, there aren't many cornerbacks that would have a worse run of 5 years of coverage grades than this. And I'm talking like undrafted free agents that get thrown into the fire too.
Sure.
There's a couple small sample size alerts here, but he's played 2,000 snaps in his career. And over the 5 years, PFF on a 0 to 100 scale, anything above like 60 is kind of, if you're above 60, you're kind of, 60 to 70, you're like average to above average. If anything above 70 would be a really good player in coverage or any category. If you start to get below like 58 down to 55, anything way below like 50 is a disaster. And his coverage grades by season, 29.3, 46, 54.5, 53, and 30.9. So he has, according to PFF, Jeff Okuda has been literally one of the worst cover cornerbacks in the entire league since he entered with Detroit in 2020.
How is that
But
even?
he's super talented,
But
obviously.
I was going to say, how are you the third overall pick in a draft?
Yeah.
And your grades, like, it's not like they're disappointing bad, right? Like, oh, that's a little disappointing. Or he had one really bad year. You just read through grades that would get most guys. Most players by now with that run of grades are not in the league.
And some of this too, I mean, there's some yak stuff in here, but opposing quarterbacks, when they have targeted Jeff Okuda, which is 181 times in his career, they have a 106.3 passer rating.
Wow.
So, but this is what Kwesi has done as a front office leader, is go identify, and it doesn't always work, but Sam Darnold's is the example, kind of the inverse on the offensive side, where, boy, tough to find many regular starting quarterbacks with a worse track record than like the 5 or 6 years of Sam Darnold leading up to his Vikings career.
It's a great comparison.
But his drafts, like, same thing, right? Wasn't he the third overall pick too? So it's like the league consensus was super, super talented at a really important position. What the hell happened in the development process? Or did you just get stuck with a garbage organization? Because he got stuck with the Lions for a couple of years before Dan Campbell came in. I think he maybe had 1 year without Dan Campbell, but that might have been enough in that organization to completely derail your career.
Latest Vikings news.
Okay, speaking of PFF, so they had an article, well, they had a series earlier this month that kind of documented every single position, and they ranked like the top 10 players at each position across the league, and they love the Vikings offensive line. So I'm just going to give you a snippet here of what they wrote. They had Christian Darrisaw, even coming off injury, as the 7th best offensive tackle. And what they wrote was, when he is on the field and healthy, which is a question, he stands out as a top-tier blocker. His 92 PFF overall grade ranks 4th among all tackles behind only Trent Williams, Jordan Mailata, and Penei Sewell, who are probably all first-ballot Hall of Famers. They had Brian O'Neill as the 18th best offensive tackle. So all the left and right tackles, they had Brian O'Neill 18th. And there was, I believe, like 80 or 85 qualified tackles last year. So that puts him in a pretty high spot in the rankings. And they said O'Neill's 6,300 snaps since the start of the 2019 season are the 5th most among all offensive tackles. And his 85 PFF overall grade ranks 20th among 80 qualified offensive tackles over that stretch. Just a rock solid, really good, like Hall of Very Good right tackle, Brian O'Neill. They have Ryan Kelly as the 8th best center among, I think, 45 qualified centers that played last year. They do talk about the injuries. While his grading profile took a hit a little bit in 2024, he's not far removed from a career year in 2023 when he was one of the 2 best centers in the NFL, according to PFF's grading system. And then Will Fries they have as the 25th ranked guard out of 85 or 90 qualified. So all of these guys, I mean, there's been some really dark years where the Viking, it's a weak link system. This people smarter than us talk about in the NFL. And the Vikings have almost always had, whether it's Ed Ingram or like a Drew Samia or all these names that we could go back and pull from a hat, somebody who is, or hell, Garrett Bradbury,
right?
Somebody who is like very close to the bottom of their position group, according to PFF. And in this case, it looks like the worst ranked player on the offensive line is Will Fries. Now, Donovan Jackson's not on here because he hasn't played a game yet. But even Will Fries is very much top, like 3rd among the qualified players at his position group. So PFF loves the Vikings offensive line.
And the tackle thing was fixed a couple of years back. I mean, the Darrisaw pick, which might have been the last pick by Spielman in the first round, has been, just aces. O'Neill, who they took, in like the 3rd round in 2018, and we all said, this guy, what? He's been great. But this is the first time, my God, I'm trying to think. When's the last time the Vikings addressed the entire interior of the line? Like, it has been, they addressed left guard with Hutchinson, which was huge in Childress' first year in 2006. They had that run through basically John Sullivan of centers who were really, really good. And then the run of late has not been good. But It feels like the Vikings finally got the hint, and it started with the Spielman years and then carried into the first part of Kwesi. The Vikings finally got the hint that interior offensive line play is really important. Like, it feels like they just tried to
but they
moneyball it for a while.
Kind of, though. But I feel like they've just kind of whiffed on some.
Sure, but I'm just saying as far
first round pick Bradbury, second round pick Ingram, second round pick Ezra Cleveland.
But I like going out. I actually like, if you have the money, I like also now just going out and aside from some concern with Fries and Kelly about injury, I like just addressing it. But yeah, they did. They whiffed on picks, which is weird too, because, you know, the O'Neal pick was a great pick. The Darisaw pick, which they traded down for, was a great pick. But I do like the fact that they have finally, like this is the first time in a long time that I have gone into a season, provided guys stay healthy, thinking this offensive line as a whole looks really, really solid. And I can't emphasize enough how much I like having a center who you think that you can trust for sure.
Yeah, but it probably only is a 1 year situation with Ryan Kelly. I don't think he has any guaranteed money on his contract for 2026.
Yep, and he has had, he has not played consistently. He had a concussion and a neck injury last year, so there's concern there. But I mean, at least they're taking a stab at trying to address it and not just trying to bring back guys, which is what they did previously.
ESPN.com also has a nugget about Donovan Jackson here that the Dex dug up this morning. And I think it's Jeremy Fowler just talking to like anonymous people around the NFL about things. So it's funny how much NFL unnamed sources and front office people and coaches love to gossip to the Jeremy Fowlers, the Grazianos, and these guys. But he had something. This is an anonymous NFL coordinator on Donovan Jackson, the Vikings' 24th overall pick and likely starting left guard. Quote, "You know why I really like this pick? Donovan Jackson's going to be a solid 10-year starter in the NFL. Not sure he's elite, but he'll make a few Pro Bowls, and he'll be a really good player for a long time." And if that's door number one, and there's a mystery crate or mystery box behind door number two, I think we would just take that.
A 10-year guard? Oh, my God, yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And don't forget, too, that he did, and I'm not trying to say that this will or should happen anytime soon, but don't forget, too, he kicked out to left tackle as well. So there's versatility there. But if you can give me, I mean, hell, I'll take 8 years. Shave 2 off. I'll take 8. If you could give me a reliable
I think I would take
starter,
6 or 7 years. You know,
okay. Yeah. Well, you know what? If you win a Super Bowl, you don't care. But no, this is if you're saying that this guy who again played left tackle, I don't think that he had played it previously in college last year, can start for me for a significant amount of years at left guard. Yeah, I'm all in.
Yeah, let's make it happen.
I love Vikings news.
So do we, Judd. Yeah, and this Vikings news today is presented. We have a couple more nuggets for you and a random Viking of the week, but 2 men in a truck are here for all of your moving needs, Dex.
Yeah, so it's moving season, right? It's summertime. You're moving into your new place, and instead of trying to figure out, does my buddy have a truck, or can my parents help me out? You call the experts at 2 Men in a Truck, and they will take care of your move. My sister just used 2 Men in a Truck last week for her big move, and you let the experts handle that. No hidden fees, no service charge. What they quote is what you pay. They help make my move happen as well. Tell them that Purple Daily sent you. The next time you're ready to move, go contact our friends at 2 Men in a Truck.
Mm-hmm. All right. Also, Federated Insurance. We appreciate their partnership here, helping us build our business over the last 5 or 6 years. Score North, Purple Daily. And we've talked a lot about how they can help business owners, but Federated is also an excellent place to work, a potentially great place to start your career. So Federated hires special driven people who fit the Federated culture, people who value and exhibit integrity, teamwork, respect, and equity. They hire a lot of former college athletes as well. So there's a pipeline of former college football players, college gymnasts, whatever it may be. If these things describe you, or if you're interested in finding out more about Federated's workplace, culture, and opportunities, you can visit federatedinsurance.com/careers to learn more. That's federatedinsurance.com/careers. Okay. So,
Latest Vikings news.
There's some conflicting thoughts and reports on the Vikings comp pick situation for the 2026 draft. This is like real in the weeds, nitty-gritty stuff.
This is Vikings news, though.
But there's been, I think the leanings have been over the last few months that they're projected losing Darnold for $33.5 million a year, losing Daniel Jones for like that was a good one because that's like $15 million. That's a nice little chunk. That's a keeper right there. They did sign Will Fries and Ryan Kelly, but some of the guys they signed, like Javon Hargrave and Jonathan Allen, those players don't count toward the comp pick formula because they were cut or released by their former teams, right? They weren't straight up free agents. So I'm getting this from Vikings fan page, who took a screenshot of over the cap's projected comp picks for the Vikings. And they've got third round pick Sam Darnold. So the Vikings get a third round comp pick for next year. It's not official till like next spring, but Daniel Jones projected to offset for a fourth round comp pick. But then they've got right now Trent Sherfield signing for $3 million. It's kind of a, like a depth wide receiver, netting the Vikings a seventh round compensatory pick. Hey. So if, and I don't know, maybe over the cap changes this at some point. Some of it might depend on like how Trent Sherfield performs. I'm not 100% sure what's all in this formula. But if this holds, I believe the Vikings would have 9 scheduled draft picks for 2026. Their own first, second, and third, a third round comp pick. I believe it was a fourth that went to the Jaguars for Cam Robinson, but they would get a fourth round comp pick for Daniel Jones here.
Okay.
Their own 5th, 6th, and 7th, and then a 7th round comp pick. Oh. So potentially 9 draft picks.
Oh, they're back.
9.
They're back, baby.
9.
9.
I just watched it 2 nights ago. Turned it on Sunday.
Crazy.
One of my all-time favorite films.
It's a great movie. Mm-hmm. But 9 draft picks.
9
draft picks.
Yeah, 9 draft picks. Really good, especially since comp picks can now be traded. So you can make some trades. You can wheel and deal.
You can. Gives you 33% more tradable draft picks.
Mm-hmm.
Would be great. So that's just something to keep an eye on as the Vikings. Maybe they hang on to all of them. It's just ammunition for them to use and move around. And then I saw this. So ESPN has something called the Football Power Index.
Football.
That's right. The FPI. Jeff.
How's the sauce made?
Football, yeah.
I have no idea. But they put together like projections, and it's all a little conservative, like I think I've closed out the link here. I just have screenshots of some of the nitty-gritty, but like they project every team between like 6.5 and 11-ish wins, and in reality, every year someone's winning 3 or 2, and someone at the top is going to win 13 or 14. So they're a little conservative, but they have projected the season here. They have best chance to win the Super Bowl. Here are let's see here. They've got 14 teams listed here in the top of this. I'll go in order. Teams most likely to win the Super Bowl, according to the ESPN Football Power Index.
Okay.
Eagles, 12%.
Of course.
Oh, wow.
Chiefs, 11%, just ahead of Bills at 10%. Ravens at 9%. Lions, 8%. Commanders and Rams at 5%.
Okay.
Then you have 4 teams at 4%. Chargers, Bengals, 49ers, and Packers. And then you have 3 teams at 3%. Buccaneers, Broncos, Vikings. So for all you people who think that it's a foregone conclusion that the Vikings are definitively better than the Packers, here is yet another. This is an analytical platform.
Yeah.
Packers have had one of the youngest teams in the league. You got players aging into their prime. So I just dismiss. You can hate the Packers. I have Vikings fans hate the Packers.
Yep.
But dismiss the Packers potentially at your own peril. The Packers are projected to be a very good football team.
Yes, and it's funny too because it feels like there have been a lot of times that we've thought this is going to be the year that the Packers regress. Now, this is not an occasion for that, but I mean, Green Bay consistently is a good team. Here's the other thing too, that nationally, I think this is true of the national pundits, and I think it's true of any of the data as well. When you have Jordan Love, who's certainly not perfect, but is a known commodity, that so outweighs the unknown, at least, of McCarthy. Like, it would be interesting if you plugged in a quarterback. I mean, hell, it could be Darnold. But if you plugged in a quarterback coming off a year that was solid or good, right? I mean, let's just, for the sake of this conversation among friends, say Kirk Cousins was going to be the starting QB here, okay? How would that sway? Because I do think that both in people's minds and in the data points, that the McCarthy thing is such an unknown that the Vikings are consistently being penalized for it, despite the fact it could end up just fine.
Yeah, well, so on the Jordan Love thing, let's drill down on that for a second, because if you take from Aaron Rodgers' career, because they're kind of a similar situation where it's like, okay, you got 20 years ago, the Packers have their incumbent future Hall of Fame quarterback, and then they draft a guy late in the first round who's really talented but needs some molding in Aaron Rodgers, and he sits for like 3 years. And then he gets his shot, and he comes in as a starter for the first time year 4 at age 25. And it was kind of rough that first year. He threw a career-high 13 interceptions. We watched and covered those teams. You were at the Star Tribune. I was at KFXNradio.com. And Aaron was very, very good for those first 3 years, but he didn't. And I think they won a Super Bowl in his third year. It was that 2010 year. Mm-hmm. He was very good, but he didn't like really turn into the Hall of Fame Aaron Rodgers until year 4 as a starter, age 28. And of course, they never won another Super Bowl after that, which is kind of funny. 30 plus years of these generational quarterbacks. Well, Jordan Love, kind of same thing, right? Let's take a flyer on this dude late in the first round. He can sit behind Rodgers. He sits for a few years, gets his first shot as a starter, age 25, just like Rodgers, going into his age 27 season. He's shown flashes. I think the concern there from a Vikings perspective would be Jordan Love at age 27, going into his third year as a starter, is not a finished product by any means. And he's super talented, big arm, mobility, everything. Is there another level that he gets to that Rodgers got to where, oh man, now you're talking about a top 5 quarterback in the league? Is that in there for Jordan Love? And again, it sucks to hear that if you're a Vikings fan, but that is a possibility. Mm-hmm. That this is who he is, right? He's like a 25, 30 touchdown guy who has some accuracy issues. Well, 26, 27 is really young for a quarterback. So keep an eye on a Jordan Love jump, I guess, is what I'm saying.
I don't know. Like, Rodgers came into this just surgeon who never threw interceptions, like just was insane. But he also, Jordan Love, has learned a lot of those ridiculous 1 foot planted off, throwing a dart out of the pocket, 40-yard bomb down the seam. You're like, oh my God, he learned that from Rodgers. Like that type of stuff, just sitting behind him and being that athletic. I don't think, and I might be the this is Packers Daily sometimes with Dex tweets, but I like Jordan Love. I think there's a good quarterback in there. I don't know if he rises up to be Aaron Rodgers winning 4 MVPs by the time his Packers tenure is done. I don't think he's that good, but I do think he is a very good quarterback, and I would be wary of him if you were a Vikings fan.
If you put Jordan Love on the Vikings right now, what would the predictions, what would the expectations be for this roster with Jordan Love a quarterback?
Super Bowl.
Yeah, like it would. I think the expectation would be that he flirts with an MVP, and the Vikings are like a 13-win Super Bowl contender.
Yep, I agree.
Right, but by the way, J.J. McCarthy also super talented, even though he has a weak arm, right, Judd?
Oh, it's a terrible.
Good question, Judd.
That noodle arm.
That arm, ball flutters.
So how quickly, and that's another thing, it's like, okay, if Jordan Love, if there's another level and he gets to it and he stays there for like a decade, which happened with Rodgers, well, then McCarthy's going to have to go against that for the duration of his career until Love ages out, which again, won't be for many, many years.
The bottom line is this: the National Football League and its experts cannot deal with the unknown at quarterback.
Yeah, because you just kind of default to, oh, it's going to be terrible.
Yeah.
One more thing on the Football Power Index front here. They've got a list of the 10 most likely Super Bowl matchups.
Oh, nice.
Just based on there. So I'll just go in order here. These are the most likely Super Bowl matchups: Eagles-Chiefs, Eagles Ravens, Eagles Bills, Lions Bills, which would probably break the entire NFL internet. Lions Ravens, Lions Chiefs, Rams Chiefs, Commanders Chiefs, Rams Bills, 49ers Chiefs for the 14th time. Those are the 10 most likely Super Bowl matchups.
Where is the San Francisco love coming from?
Well, yeah, schedule definitely part of it because they had a bad record last year. But they are getting some players back from injury. There's an expectation that like McCaffrey comes back. I wonder though, in terms of quarterback uncertainty, it's funny, they bake in the quarterback uncertainty for like McCarthy, who's never played before. But are you baking it in on the back end for Brock Purdy, whose roster is not nearly what it was the first few years as a starter?
It doesn't feel like it.
But it feels like you know more about what Brock Purdy's baseline performance is, right, under the previous circumstances. But they've lost, like, Deebo Samuel was a huge piece to that offense and defensive game plans. And that dude's, like, clearly enjoying his time at the restaurants in Washington, D.C., if you've seen some of the practice footage, but no longer with the 49ers. So, but yeah, like analytically, the 49ers are still very much like in the mix, according to the Football Power Index anyways, for a Super Bowl.
Can I give you one quick one too, though, you guys? So I think we need to, and I'm not saying they're not a very good team, okay? Hear me out, though. The Eagles thing. Now, they popped up last season. They're a good team. They've got depth. I don't know I love them, though. Like, repeating is very hard. I think it's fair to say this. They are a talented roster, but they are a volatile organization. I don't know I buy that they'll be good. I buy that they're a playoff team. I don't think, though, it feels like they are getting like the ordinary Chiefs bump of, well, they won a Super Bowl. Gotta have this, gotta have that. I don't know that volatility that they're going to necessarily rebound with a Super Bowl type of season.
The biggest thing to watch for the Eagles is the decline of Saquon Barkley. So he's going to be 28 years old. Just on its own, 28 is getting a little close to the end of the peak running back age curve, right? And then you layer on top of that, he touched the ball between regular season and postseason 482 times last year.
Yeah.
482 times?
Yep.
He led the league in rushing attempts in the regular season with 345, had the 2,000 yards. And then on the receiving end, he also caught 33 passes. So the 378 in the regular season led the league. And then they gave him the ball 104 times in 4 playoff games on top of that. It's tough to find a running back in the last 40 years that has bounced back from that. Like, first of all, not many guys get to that workload. That'd be a fun list. How many guys have even touched the ball that many times in a season, last 40 years? But what does he look like 1 year after that workload? So, and if that happens, okay, yep. And then they lost Mekhi Becton up front. It'd be really interesting. Mm-hmm. But that's what the Football Power Index thinks right now anyways. Judd's got a random Viking of the week for us here after he tells you guys about the fine folks at MS. And we finally got to see a glimpse of what MSP Plumbing, Heating, and Air saw yesterday, which is the inside of Judd's house outside of his home office.
Yep, that's right. I don't allow a lot of folks in, but I did allow the MSP folks in for multiple projects, and they have come through at every turn. And now it's your opportunity in the month of June. Book a $49 AC tune-up and get a BOGO air quality bundle. That's right, a pristine electronic air cleaner and a UV light for the price of one. Also, MSP is partnering with the Open Door, a hunger relief organization, providing food to more than 20,000 people a month. MSP will be collecting brown paper bags during their HVAC and plumbing calls. The bags are then used to distribute food to those in need. So when you book your appointment with MSP, you can unload all of those paper shopping bags. Call them, 651-615-4292. Or check them out at their website, callmsp.com. Call MSP.com. Do some good for the community, and also make sure that you are using the best in town, MSP Plumbing, Heating, and Air.
All right, let's get to the random Viking of the week here, gentlemen, where there's controversy. People think because I'm up 6-0 on you guys in the new era of random Viking of the week that I'm cheating.
Oh, so, that's a good, yeah. I don't, as far as I know, folks, it's legit. Are there untoward things going on behind the scenes? That's on Phil's conscience.
Listen, here's the thing. So couldn't possibly be that I know the career of Kelly Holcomb like the back of my hand, or I know the career of Cedric Griffin's touchdown fumble recovery returns like the back of my other hand.
I feel like if Dex breaks the streak today, that there will be accusations that I might have teamed up with Dex to break your streak.
Is that a clue?
I just want to say off the top, that's not true.
Is that a clue?
That's not true.
It's not true. Okay.
And it's not true. Declan has no idea who this is.
Well, we wiped the slate clean a couple months ago on Random Viking of the Week. We started over from 0, and I have 6 wins. You guys are still looking for your first wins. Jubb was the loser last week, so he gives out the clues this week. The 6 Random Vikings so far: Bobby Wade, E.J. Henderson, Matt Asiata, Mike Tice, Kelly Holcomb, and Cedric Griffin. So Judd will throw out some clues. We get up to 3 incorrect guesses each. If one of us hits the third one, the other one wins automatically. Here we go.
Yeah, but it's slow.
No Googling.
Right.
Is
That's
it cheating?
Right. That's
Is
right,
it cheating that I
Phil.
just get to tap into my big football brain?
That's right. Your big football brain named Google. All right. Clue number 1. This Random Viking played for 2 teams in his NFL career. He was a bright kid. He was very smart. How smart, you ask? I'll tell you. He was the valedictorian of his high school class.
Interesting. Okay.
His dad also loved the pigskin. He loved the sport of football. Who doesn't? He played in the USFL and coached this Random Viking in high school. This Random Viking played 82 games in 6 seasons, but only made 14 starts. Didn't start a lot.
16 starts?
14 starts.
14 starts.
6 seasons.
Yep.
82 games.
Yep.
So he appeared in a lot of games, but I only started 14 times. He had 10 NFL touchdowns.
Oh, boy.
Eight of those, they came with the Vikings.
There's no shot this guy is a valedictorian, but I have a guess.
Do you want to take it before it's too late? Before Phil jumps in and wins again? Because right now you can see he's furiously typing something. I can't tell.
Yeah, what is Declan typing over there? Are you saying I'm typing?
You're both cheating.
I got my hands
You're both.
up.
There's tons of cheating
What's
going
he got?
on.
He's got a screen open.
Oh my God, he got a screen. Oh.
Same thing I always do. Been doing it for
Which is
5
cheat.
years.
I do have a guess, but I
Okay.
feel like Declan's not close
Okay.
yet, so I'm gonna.
Okay. Let's get back to his intelligence, because it also transferred to the scouting combine, where he had a Wonderlic score of 30. That was the highest at his position group, so not the highest at the combine.
All right, so he's a smart guy.
I believe Matt Burke aced it, if I'm not mistaken. This Random Viking, well, he now works in sales for an insurance company in Nashville, or at least he did the last time his Wikipedia page was updated.
So he kind of needed a second job as a clue.
Yep.
Is it Rhett Ellison?
It's a nice guess. It's incorrect.
It's one down for me.
Dex, guess or no?
No.
Okay. This Random Viking led his college football team to its first bowl berth in 8 years. Oh, boy. This Random Viking's talents in sports, it knew no bounds. In fact, he also played in what is currently going on in Omaha right now. He also played in the College Baseball World Series.
Really? Wow. Sport athlete.
His brother played college football at Arizona State and was an offensive lineman for the Cleveland Browns, which, by the way, I did not know, which is surprising since I covered this guy. I thought I was all over it. Clearly, I wasn't.
Can I ask you a question? Did this guy ever come on our old radio show?
I don't think so, but that's a long time ago as well, so I'm not going to swear that I'm right on that. But I did cover him. And you did too, Phil. And Dex watched him.
And Dex watched him.
Okay, we're going to...
No,
What?
he didn't score that many. Maybe did he? I do have a guess again, but I also I don't want to rifle off another guess and then.
Okay. Because I will say this: this one is in both your wheelhouses, so like it's not going to be a surprise when you hear it. Mm-hmm. All right, I got 4 clues left. Be prepared, both of you, because it's going to come to both of you, starting with this clue. He was the runner-up for the Heisman Trophy to Mark Ingram in 2009.
Toby Gerhart.
Toby Gerhart.
Yep.
Oh, let's rock and roll. You know what's funny? I was gonna guess Jeff Dugan before that clue.
Dukes. I don't know.
A
Dukes
sneaky Heisman Trophy candidate.
I don't know. Dukes was a valedictorian.
There it is. Thanks to Google for helping me cheat to win another one there.
I gotta end this next week. I'm gonna start training right now.
Victories.
I'm gonna start training right now, folks. I'm in training. I'm like
only
Rocky.
one of us flashed a screen on camera there, by the way.
I'm going to the
cheaters.
I'm going to the mountains in Russia, and I'm going to go train. I am going to train.
Drago!
Dawn will say, "I just want you to do one thing."
What's that?
You can't win, Judd. There's no air on the moon.
Win. 7-0 to nothing.
I need a trainer.
No one's climbing this mountain. We're going to have to start Random Viking of the Week over again to give you guys a chance. Maybe we'll consider that for next week.
I feel good about my Twins win last week, but yeah, you're not wrong.
Good job. All right, tomorrow we've got our Write That Down predictions here on Purple Daily. There's your latest Vikings news.
Sorry, Dex, I tried.
That's okay.
News.
I tried to give it to you.
We just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before Judd or Dex finally gets on the board on Random Viking.
Stop it.